Good afternoon, members of the jury. This is a no-brainer. This case boils down to simply about common sense. Someone does not get shot from behind if it came from the right. Members of the jury, you met Mr. Toth, a husband, a father, a respected neurosurgeon in our community. A man who has devoted his entire life to helping others, saving others, and protecting others. A man who the night of the incident had worked a long shift and just left a 4-hour brain surgery and just wanted to go home and finally get some rest and sleep. Sleep. A sleep that had been interrupted for the past several weeks by a group of vandals who were making noises in the middle of the night comparable to gunshots at 2, 3 a.m., all hours of the night. This issue had been reported to the police, who had been investigating, but still could not find who was. So, concerned, worried because they didn't know who they were, the people that were coming, if the threats will be escalating as they were escalating in frequency. Him, along with his neighbor, Dr. Elliser, decided they were going to stay outside, get a license plate, hand that over to the police, hopefully figure out who it was, and hopefully end it. They were going to take turns. Dr. Toth was going to go one weekend, Dr. Elliser another. This night, Dr. Elliser, it's 1:30, 2 a.m. He's tired. He wants to go to bed, but Dr. Elliser asks him, it's the first night out, hey, please stay out with me. Also, we don't know who these guys are. Grab your guns. Dr. Elliser grabs 2 guns, one loaded, one unloaded. Heads outside. He hears the screeches, so he hands one of the guns to Dr. Elliser, doesn't know which one's which, and he hears a fire. Shoot. He gave him the loaded one. Now, the plaintiff has brought us here and have failed to prove to you that Kevin Toth intentionally discharged a firearm towards the vehicle driven by the plaintiff. Now, let's talk about the witnesses you heard about today. You heard from Miss Tracy. Miss Tracy, the one that's counting on you to leave common sense at the door when you stepped in here. Someone who, close to the age of being a legal adult, wants you to believe the vandalism is a kid's game. That targeting and taunting families is a kid's game. But what did Miss Tracy tell us? What did Miss Tracy tell us? She did not see who injured her. She has no idea who did it. And how she's bitter because the police didn't want to investigate. So she ended up choosing one of the doctors that lived in the block. So who did she choose? The one who didn't send flowers. Now, what else did she tell us? She told us that she was injured from behind. Right here, through the back, out through the front. What else did she tell us? She told us from her memory that this is how the incident happened. She told us that after being shot, she was startled, stepped on the accelerator, lost control of the vehicle, smashed in front of a car. So she was, after hitting with Dr. Knox, 2 mailboxes. Now, this is what she drew from memory, right? We're going to get back to this in a second. Now, the only witness that allegedly claims saw what happened is Dr. Elliser. Now, members of the jury, you will be giving jury instructions. And according to the jury instructions, you are to determine the credibility of any witness and the weight to be given to the testimony of that witness. An important factor is any interest the witness may have in the outcome of the case. Now, the issue before you is that Kevin Toth intentionally discharged a firearm. This conclusion was not investigated by Ms. Tracy. There's no one here to tell us who did it. And the only person that says Mr. Toth did it is Dr. Elizer. The only witness with an interest that it is Dr. Elizer, that it is Dr. Toth. Now, Dr. Elizer knew that he had a stake, an interest in the outcome. He knew this from the moment the incident happened because he was the one that shot the firearms. So he felt guilty. He felt nervous. He knew what he did was wrong. He knew he had injured somebody. Dr. Toth didn't know this. So he grabs the guns, gives them back to Dr. Toth, gives the gun back to Dr. Toth. The guns that are under Dr. Toth's names, runs over to help Mr. Tracy because he's the one that caused the injury. Sends flowers to the hospital because he's the one that caused the injury. Now, what else did Dr. Elizer show us? He drew out the neighborhood. And he shows where he was hiding, and he shows where they came in, and he shows where the car ended. Now, Mr. Tracy drew this from memory. Now, let's use our common sense. Although Mr. Tracy's is not 100% accurate, it's what he remembers and what he recalls. Dr. Elizer's is slightly more accurate because he lives there. Let's compare the two charts. These two houses aligned. 504 and the house at the bottom aligned. 508 and this house, the final house where the car crash was, aligned. The house of Dr. Toth is not even in Mr. Tracy's picture. Now, Mr. Tracy tells us that after smashing two mailboxes, they were going to head out of the neighborhood after the last mailbox. So they drive up, smash. They drive up, smash. And when they're heading out, back out to Dr. Sooner, to Sooner Road, he gets shot right here. Loses control of the vehicle and ends up over here. Now, how do we know this is true? Dr. Elizer saw them hit the two mailboxes. Now, at the end of our case in chief, we read to you the police report that has been stipulated to you. And in the police report, it says that they found the Jeep with front damage on 508. That is true according to Dr. Tracy's, Miss Tracy's and Dr. Elizer's charts. And they found two smashed mailboxes and recorded it. And the mailboxes were those of the house on 502 and 504. The first mailbox, the second mailbox, out. Now, what else do we know about Dr. Elizer? He told us he has no experience about guns, but he was eager. He wanted to use a gun. He's never used one. He's been asking Mr. Toth to teach him how to. But this night he did. And this is what happens when someone doesn't have gun experience. They don't know how to aim, and they use a gun recklessly, eagerly or recklessly. Now, who else did you hear from? You heard from Mrs. Toth, who explained that she also did not have any ability to see who shot you. She also told you, though, how the neighborhood was not sleeping, and why they were being targeted, and why Dr. Toth and Dr. Eliezer decided to sit out and figure out who it was, because they didn't know who it was. It could have been anybody targeting a rich neighborhood. Now, she also did tell us that Dr. Eliezer was asking and begging for her to talk to Dr. Toth to teach him about guns, because he was really, really wanting to learn how to use one. She also told us how that night her husband did get handed 2 guns. But then she told us that she was scared. She had never used a gun before. That's kind of her husband's thing. And when he handed him those guns, she did, in a zombie-like instinctive state, threw them to the lake. Now, you also heard from Mr. Toth. And Mr. Toth told you how he wasn't the one that shot. How he had intended to give the unloaded gun to Dr. Eliezer. But in the confusion and the chaos of the mess, he just handed one, and next thing he knows, he hears gunshots, and he realizes, I gave him the wrong one. Now, Dr. Eliezer knew, Mr. Toth knew, Dr. Toth knew he had done something wrong. That Dr. Eliezer had committed a big mistake. So he wanted to protect his friend. Give me the guns. They're under his name. And he calls his attorney. He called his attorney for guidance because he didn't know what to do. A right that we all have to call our attorney when in doubt. And following his attorney's instructions, he stayed at home and waited for his attorney to arrive. He was just following his attorney's instructions. Now, the plaintiff told you he knows about guns. He's supposed to have known if one was loaded and one was unloaded. Yes, he knows about gun safety. Yes, he knows about guns. But he is also human. He is professional, he's prepared, he has experience, but he's human. And he's a man who just performed a 4-hour brain surgery. It is 2 a.m. He's worked a long shift. He wasn't even prepared to be outside that day. That was Dr. Eliezer's turn. But his good friend asked for help and wanted him to be outside. He decided to help. Members of the jury, they have to prove to you with the greatest weight of evidence to show that Mr. Toth intentionally, meaning willfully, purposefully, discharged a firearm to the car that Mr. Tracy was driving. Members of the jury, here the evidence do not show with the greatest weight that it was Mr. Toth. If anything, it shows with the greatest weight that it was Dr. Eliezer, because he was the house from behind. When Mr. Tracy was leaving the neighborhood, he was the house from behind. He was the one that didn't know how to use a gun. He was the one that didn't know how to aim. He was the one that was just eager. Members of the jury, I trust that you're going to realize this is a case simply about common sense. This is a no-brainer. And that at the end of this case, you were confident that you would choose a verdict that is supported by the facts and the law. That Mr. Toth was not the one that fired that gun. That Mr. Toth had no intention to fire that gun. That Mr. Toth that he wasn't even holding the loaded weapon. That Mr. Toth was not the house from behind. That Mr. Toth was living in the house to the right of the vehicle. And from the right, you can shot from behind. And from the right, there was Mr. Knox. And Mr. Knox was not even injured. That it wasn't him and that at the end you will see that Kevin Todd did not discharge a firearm toward the vehicle driven by Corey Tracy, and that you would check no. Thank you.